Welcome to this video. Yuri is here. We will be building games today together with you. Not just games, we will be building multiplayer games with the help of JavaScript, Node.js, and of course HTML5. Multiplayer games can be vastly different. They can be as simple as this little implementation of rock, paper, scissors. It doesn't even have a graphics, just the buttons and the text. Still, it is a playable game. And then the games can go all the way to multiplayer, massive multiplayer online RPGs or strategies with persistent worlds, with real-time action, with player versus player, rich graphics, or even 3D, right? And you can go all the way to that scale of games, but you have to start somewhere. And this particular video, and a couple of videos, are built to make you confident that you can build a game. This is our little goal for a couple of videos, I guess. Rock, paper, scissors, and players can talk to each other, say hi, and as you see, the other player will immediately get back that hi. They can play game. This guy selects rock, and then this guy selects paper. Obviously, the guy that selected paper wins because paper rubs rock, etc. And then they can go on and on and on. This is our goal, and right now we'll start from almost empty project and try to reach the first goal of just making our chat work, making one player send the message to the other player. All right, now let's go to our project. I have a little folder here called gamedev/RPS, and I took a little bit of freedom to set up the very basic skeleton for HTML5 applications. Guys, I truly believe that you can set up this kind of a markup. It's not hard at all. You just have an unordered list for the events that are coming from the server. It's called events. And then it has 3 buttons, rock, paper, scissors. Actually, it should be 4. There should be a button called, let's give it an ID called say to send a chat message. And finally, there should be a text field somewhere. So here's an input with ID. Let's call it chat. So now on the client side, I have just 3 files called index.html, client.js, and main.css. As you see, client.js and main.css are totally empty. On the server side, by the way, server is in the separate folder, and it is a good idea to keep your client and server totally separate and treat them as separate applications. That will save you loads of time, loads of nerves at the later phases or on the bigger projects. And the server.js is also totally empty. We will be writing it from the scratch. So here's my little setup. Now let's start building our game. All right, so the first thing that we will do, let's have a brief look at how our application looks like. And it will look quite ugly because we don't have any CSS right now. So just plain HTML, nothing else. And our first goal will be to serve this file from the server instead of from the file system. Okay, to do that, we'll need to go to our server-side part of our project. And obviously here we just have server.js, nothing else. To make it proper Node.js application, we need to do npm init. Since I'm in a rush to show you guys how to do things, I just add -y flag here, and npm will initialize my package.json with default values. I will fix them later. For now, that will do. Now, what we will need to do, we will need to call npm install and install 2 modules. Express, which is the most popular HTTP framework. I'm pretty sure that you guys heard about it or worked with it. And the second part will be socket.io. This is a library for real-time communications in web. It wraps either WebSockets or XML HTTP requests, depending on what is available, and it is providing a little bit higher level of abstractions over the plain WebSockets, and that will be quite handy, quite useful for our application. So let's install Express and Socket.io. Notice that I'm not putting save here. So why? Because I'm using npm 5 and it is Node.js version 8, and npm in this version is saving the modules by default, so you don't need to type save. It will be automatically added to package.json. So in a second it will install Express and Socket.io. Done. One more little module that I want to install in this project is called Node Mon. Usually when you change something in the server-side code, you need to restart the server. And what I hate doing is going back and forth from the console to IDE to restart the server over and over again. So what I will do, I will install npm Node Mon, and I will tell it to save as development dependency. Here I need to tell npm here's a development dependency, not the actual production dependency. Again, I just like to keep things organized and know which are the parts of the app that I need for production, which are the parts that I'm only using during the development time. Alright, this dependency is installed and I can jump back to my IDE. Alright, so on server.js I need to start coding. So let's start from importing HTTP. This is a standard module, so it will be right here. And I will also need to have express, which is require express. Here it is. Now I need to create a server, and this server needs a listener function right here. So it needs to know what to do when the client is connecting. And whenever the client is connecting, express will be handling the connection. So I'll create an app from express. An app, by the way, it is an object and a function, right? So app is a function and I can pass it here. Alrighty. Now this is a very basic server. Obviously it needs to listen to something. Server listen to port, let's say 8080, just fine. Whenever it listens to 8080, I want to call this function to print RPS started on 8080. Now I also want to know when the server crashed for some reason and couldn't start. So I add an event listener called error. So whenever there is an error, please call this function, and the error object will be passed right here. And here I will write console error server error. So something like this. If I did everything correctly, I should be able to start server, right? So you can usually go to terminal and just type node server.js, but it's not cool. The right way to do that would be to go first to our package.json, and in package.json to define a script to start the application. It's already defined node server.js. So see, npm is smart enough to define the script. Awesome. So now in my console, I can just type npm start. And server started. Looks like it's working. At least I don't have any errors so far. Okay, but it's not doing anything. It's not even trying to serve my static files. Let's fix that. In order to serve static files, I will need to add a middleware to this little application, to this little Express app. Static middleware that is responsible for serving static files is available in Express out of the box. Probably it's just the only single thing that is available out of the box, but it is available. So I'm writing app use Express static. And in order for static to work, I need to tell it where to find files. All right, so my files will be stored in this folder, which is client path. And client path will be, what will it be? It will be __ dir name. This is the variable that is available in Node.js, and it points to the current folder of the current module. So this will be here, server, this part. So from dir name, I need to go one level up to RPS because client is on the same level as server. It's not a subfolder of server, it's on the same level. So I need to go one level upper, and I need to go to the client. So this path will look ugly, but it will work. Console log. Let's type serving static from client path. Amazing. And now since I changed something in the server side part, I need to go and restart the server. I don't like to do that each and every time, so I will make my life easier straight away. I'll go to package.json, and here I will add one more script, by the way. Put start over here, and after start I will put a script called, what shall we call it? It's called dev for development. And here we call Node Mon server.js. So npm is smart and knows that if you're calling the module that is available inside of Node modules, it doesn't even have to be installed globally. It will execute it put all the paths right, and it will run server.js inside of a Node Mon. So what it will give us, let me show you a really quick demo of how it works. If you're not yet using Node Mon, you're developing in Node.js, just trust me, you have to start using it. It will save you so much time in the long run. Okay, so npm run dev, that's my script. Righty, root paths required. Something bad happened here. Serve static. So I probably didn't pass, I didn't pass the variable client path here. I'll fix that. And you see, I fixed the problem. I didn't touch anything after the application crash, and instantly Node Mon picked up that I changed the file and it restarted the server. So the server is working right now. So if I did everything correctly, I'm serving the files from 8080, it should be picked up. Let's see if it works. And it works. So right now my files are served from 8080. So now this is a good time to start talking to the server and to use Socket.io. Let's initialize Socket.io on the server first. Setting up Socket.io on the server is really easy. Almost as easy as setting up Express application. So all you need to do is, obviously you need that module. So let's create a variable called Socket.io and require this module. Now, all you need to do is call this function, this is the function, and pass it an HTTP server instance, and it will return your, server that you can use to talk to your clients. So let's do that. Const IO. IO is a very typical name for Socket.io servers. Socket.io server. Now at this point you might have a question, will Socket.io annihilate or destroy our listener that is already registered on the server? So as you see here, we register Express.js as the listener to the server. So will Socket.io override it? Now, in reality, Socket.io is very smart. It will detect that there is already a listener and it will just take care of its own requests. It will not interfere in any way with Express.js application. Now, Socket.io is ready on the server. That's literally it. Now, in order to do something with it, you need to listen to events. Whenever there is something happening with Socket.io, it will emit an event like everything in JavaScript. So whenever the user will be connected to the server, you will receive an event called connection. And in the event listener, you will receive an object called sock. I usually call it sock though. Stands short for socket, nothing to do with socks. Let's send the message to the user right away as he connects. So will the sock emit? Again, we don't care about the details, how this message will be passed. We'll emit something that is called a message. This is a string that will just identify the type of the thing that you are sending. It can be anything, chat, message, turn, etc. And then we'll passing the data. Again, data can be anything as well. You can pass a number, you can pass the object, it will all work. So, hi, you are connected. This will be the message that I will send to each and every newly connected user. Okay, now let's go on the client side and we'll try to receive this wonderful message on the client. So we're going to client.js, which is so far totally empty. Now, I don't want to write a console. I really want to append my messages to this little events block that I have on the page. So I'll write a little helper function called let's call it log. It's a good function, or write event, probably better name. And this is going to be another arrow function. As you see, I really like arrow functions, and it will receive the text. What it will do, firstly, it will receive the parent, the UL element. We'll call query selector, and what's the ID of our wrapper? It's called events. Okay. So events. Now to that parent, I need to add another li. So let me add a little bit of comments here. Let's be nice. This is UL element. And this is going to be list item li element. So we'll say document, create element, because we're creating new element to put there the text that we received from the server. And the type of that element is li, list item. Now, inside of element, we'll put inner HTML, and that will be the text that we want to put in. Finally, parent, we need to call here append child to add this newly created element to the parent. So now our write event is ready. Now let's just call it straight away to see that if it works. And here I had the hello message saying hello to RPS. Instead of putting it into HTML, I will now move that to our JavaScript file to keep things organized. Right event, welcome to RPS. Awesome. So now if I refresh the page, it still writes welcome to RPS, but now instead of coming from HTML, this is coming from my JavaScript, which is good. Now, okay, let's now get that message from the server. The first thing to do, we need somehow to get the client-side code for Socket.io. On the server side, we just required Socket.io library, and we've got everything that we need on the server side. On the client side, we need that library. We need those definitions. We need clients to know how to connect to that server. So I'll add another script block right on top, and this is important. I'm adding it on top from client.js so that inside of client.js, I will already have Socket.io initialized. And the source for that script going to be a little bit of magic here. Socket.io / means the root of the server. Socket.io / socket.io.js. So you might be thinking, wait. There is no such file. And if you check the project here and here and here, there is no socket.io.js. This file is non-existent. So how browser will receive it? Well, the magic is happening inside of this little IO object. Remember, we used it to wrap around the server. So when IO detects that our client side, our web page, is requesting socket.io.js, it will just send as a string, it will send the code of the client side, which is quite convenient because you don't really have to care to download separately client and the server side parts. There is no way to have any kind of version conflicts. This method has its downsides for packaging, and when we will be looking at Webpack, we'll change this approach a little bit, but for now it will perfectly work, right? So on the client side, we will now have a global object, which is not cool, but we'll get rid of it in the later videos. That is called IO, initialized inside of this script. So let's use this object. We'll use it this way, sock equals IO, just like that, very simple. And by default, this IO will know where it is coming from, right? It will connect to the same server as you're running right now, and it will establish connection to the server. Now, just to see that it works, let's do one more thing on the server side. Instead of just emitting hi, we will also do console log and write someone connected, just to see some action. Good. Now, if we did everything correctly, which again, I'm not sure about, if I refresh this page, it should print here someone connected. Okay, someone connected, awesome. So client-side Socket.io now handshaked with the server-side Socket.io, and we even received the message back. The only problem, we didn't do anything on the client side to print that message. All right. So going back to the client side, here's our client.js. Sock is exactly the same object as on the server. So if you see here on the server, we've got sock, and when we call emit, it goes back to the client. On the client side, it will work exactly the same way. If you call sock emit, it will send something to the server. But right now, we're not interested to send something. We are interested to receive something. And to do that, we need to add an event listener on, and then you pass the name of the event that you used here in the server. Let me close this. CSS and package.json, we're not working with it. So we're sending message. So on the client side, the event will be called exactly the same way, message. So whenever we've got message, let's do something. Let's write event with the text of that message. Like this. Even, you know what? So this code will definitely work. There's no problem with this code, but we can make it even shorter. So instead of putting here the text and doing the anonymous function, we can just pass write event as a function here, because it also accepts a single parameter and it will write it. All right, so let me put it somewhere here, down, below the definitions of the functions, again, to keep the code clean. So we're initializing socket.io object. Whenever there is a message, we will write that event. Now let's see if that works. Refreshing the page again. Hi, you are connected. Now this message is most definitely coming from the server side because I don't have that message anywhere on the client, and that means that your connection was successful. So the next step is just to make clients talk to each other. So whenever someone will be typing here hello and pressing say button, the other clients will be receiving that as the message. Very easy. So how do we do that? Firstly, I want to update my client side a little bit. Firstly, I think button say just doesn't belong here. Let's put it right after chat. That makes sense. Now, here I will wrap it in a form. And inside of that form, this will be a submit button. So if I will now refresh, yeah, it looks much better. Firstly, form added this little line break here. Now I can press save. It will reload the page, which I don't want, but at least form works. Okay, great. So I have my form. And let me give it ID, let's call it chat form. Alrighty, so whenever this form is submitted, I want to send that message on the server. To do that, I will need to prepare a little bit of code. Firstly, on form submitted. This will be the function that we will execute whenever user presses submit or hits enter. No matter what he does to submit the form, this will be executed. Let's register this function, by the way, and this function accepts event, right? Let's register it right here. Document query selector. Let's get the ID of a form. It's called chat form. So it's chat form. Add event listener. Yes, I love DOM API. I just love DOM API because it's so short. The methods names are so nice and so easy to type and remember. I'm joking, of course. So whenever we're typing submit, whenever we're having submit, we call on form submitted. Yep. So the first thing that we need to do is prevent default. This is the HTML event, and we don't want it to do anything because we don't need to submit the form and to reload the page. We'll handle the data ourselves. The next thing to do is to get our input, document query selector. As far as I remember, it's called just chat. Yes, it's ID having chat. Text is input.value. We're getting value. And then input.value gonna be nothing, empty string. So what it will do, it will find the input, will save the current state of the input into a variable called text, and finally we will say there's nothing more in the input. We will set it to nothing, to empty. So we will reset it. So now we've got a text, we need to send it. Let's just use our sock for that. Sock emit message text. Just that easy. We're sending again the event called message to the server, and the payload of that event is just a string called text. Now on the server side, let's do something. Okay, so now we're not only sending the events from the server, we can be receiving events. Just the same API. The API is totally the same. Sock on. So whenever this client, this guy who is connected right here, whenever he's sending us message, we'll get the text of that message and we'll send it back to everyone who is to everyone who is connected. And to do that, we call io.emit. We emit message and text. Notice that I'm not calling sock.emit. Sock.emit will send the message just to a single client, to this particular client whom I'm working with right now. io.emit will send it to everyone who is connected. So this way, including, by the way, the client itself. So everyone, including the guy who sent the message, will receive the message back. So now let's see if that works. Basically, my message should be coming back to me if I'm having a single client. Let me refresh the page. And I'm typing hello, hitting enter, nothing happens. Hitting say, nothing happens. Something is wrong. Maybe I didn't register the event listener right. Let me just quickly check the code. Query selector chat form. Add event listener, submit on form submitted. This looks quite okay to me. I am not quite sure what exactly is wrong, so I'll just open console here and I see a bunch of errors. Let's quickly debug it. Uncaught type error, cannot read property value of null. Okay, so here's my error. I'm trying to get the chat query selector. Oh yeah, here. I forgot to put hashtag here and it was trying to find the element, the HTML element called chat, while I have the HTML element input with ID chat. Okay, that was an easy one to debug. As you see, all the code is written in real time, no scripted code. That's why the errors are coming. So hello, typing hello, hitting enter, and I'm getting back hello, this time from the server. Now the great thing is if I open the second browser window, like this, and I connect to the server, type hi here, the other client instantly gets hi back. This is the magic of server-side emit, right? Sending to all the client. Whenever I receive message, I will broadcast it back to everyone who is right now connected to the server. So we can have a little chat here. How about a game? Sure, answers the other guy. And that's pretty much where we can stop this lesson and this video. And in the next video, we'll see how to, well, start a game and exchange turns, because we have rock, paper, scissors. These 3 buttons, they do nothing so far. So in the next lesson, maybe we will make the real game and we will match the players against each other. So thank you very much for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget to press that little like button and maybe even subscribe to my channel. This way you will know when I'm publishing the new videos from this tutorial series. So I hope to see you in the next video, and bye!